workers to pay a penalty if they quit and get hired by a competitor in the industry they work in.
Yeah.
Bringing back broad confidentiality and non-disparagement clauses in severance agreements that prevent workers from discussing the shitty conditions at their former job. Getting rid of a bunch of penalties for unfair labor practices. And, of course, bringing back multiple barriers to workplace unionization that were removed during Biden's term.
Yeah. So, yeah.
We're back. Back in business.
For all those union heads that were like...
Great job, Sean O'Brien.
Yeah.
God.
But let's move on to some news that won't make you feel like absolute shit. Trump's executive order effectively banning transgender people from the U.S. military very quickly resulted in a lawsuit. And this week, a federal judge presiding over that case took a DOJ lawyer to task in her courtroom quite beautifully. And let's just read some of that transcript. I'll be Judge Anna Reyes, and you'll be the DOJ attorney.
Okay.
Can we agree that the greatest fighting force is not going to be impacted in any way by less than 1% of the soldiers using a different pronoun than others might want to call them?
I can't agree with that here.
Would you agree with me that if our military is negatively impacted in any kind of way that matters, we all have a lot bigger problems than pronoun use? We have a military that is incompetent? Any common sense, rational human being knows that it doesn't. It is pretext. It is frankly ridiculous. If you want to get me an officer of the U.S. military who is willing to get on the stand and say that because of pronoun usage, the U.S. military is less prepared because of pronoun usage, I will be the first to give you a box of cigars. The order calls an entire category of people dishonest, dishonorable, undisciplined, immodest, who lack integrity, people who have taken an oath to defend this country, people who have been under fire, people who have received medals for taking fire for this country. I want to know from the government whether that language expresses animus. Does that express animus?
Not in any constitutional...
In a common sense way. This is a policy from the President of the United States affecting thousands of people. To call an entire group of people, lying, dishonest people who are undisciplined, immodest, and have no integrity, how is that anything other than showing animus?
I don't have an answer for you.
You do have an answer, you just don't want to give it. People can make solid arguments as to why some or even most transgender people shouldn't be in the military. We're dealing with unadulterated animus. We are dealing with the President of the United States dealing with a group of people serving their country, calling them liars.
And then this is my favorite part. Reyes then said she changed her courtroom orders to bar people who graduated from UVA Law School from appearing before her because they're all liars and lack integrity and are undisciplined and can't possibly meet the high rigors of being a lawyer for the government. She made the DOJ lawyer sit down on that basis. Then after he did, she called him back up and asked whether that was a display of animus.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Yes.
Doesn't feel so good, does it? What I just did there, that's what you're doing to trans people.
Yeah.
Sucks, right? Fuck off.
Yeah, because when you're fucking doing all this shit, you're just, it's this blob of other that you're not even thinking about. You're just being mean because you think it's funny or that whatever you think the president, the instructions were, it's just dumb, heartless, no empathy, dick move.
Well, it's literally...
And it sucks that the adults in the room have to be like, hey, you're being a fucking dick. This is stupid. Why are you being mean for no reason?
Well, this trans ban and just like everything with like Pete Hegseth and the military, it's all based on this fucking idiotic like idea that we're still a mainly infantry-based military. The year is still 1940.
Yeah, we need gigantic grunts out in all of the trenches.
Yeah, we need big tough boys. And it's like, no, we fight with fucking robots and jets now. Like, the most important people in the military, regardless of how you feel about it, are fucking drone operators. People who sit at the fucking computer and with an Xbox controller.
This is the ideal male form. If you don't like it, that's your problem, Pete Hegseth.
The ideal male form, the ideal female form, the ideal any gender form.
If you look like you can survive a car crash, you can definitely drive a drone.
But like the point is, like it's the military. It's a lot of IT. It's a lot of dorky shit. And
even if it fucking
like,
wasn't, this is so
even if it
particular,
isn't, but like that's what
specific.
That's what makes this like especially stupid. Is like they think like. They think being the military means like being one of the Spartans in 300. And it's like, no, that's, first of all, that's stupid. They all died. But secondly, it's just not how war is fought anymore.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. It's not about like having a bunch of tough guys. Like the North Koreans, they're real tough fighting over in Ukraine. And they've been dying at like insane rates because they literally just run straight into the battlefield and get mowed down.
Yeah.
I think it's better to be a little more strategic, a little more cerebral about how you fight wars, if you're going to fight them.
Again, it's one of those things that's like, the point isn't to make the military better, it's to make trans people feel worse.
I mean, that's the primary thing, but I do think some of these idiots genuinely think of war and military in this really childish fucking way, where because they're, you know, it's not just trans people, it's also like women.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, yeah, I guess if you think of war like as the way it was fought 100 years ago, I could understand why you would think like women have no place in it, but you're wrong on many fronts.
Yeah.
And yeah, you are also just being cruel for the sake of being cruel.
Yeah. And we do have a lot more to cover today, but let's take a quick second, take a break, talk about the sponsors. This episode is sponsored by Shopify. Nobody does selling better than Shopify. It's home of the #1 checkout on the planet and the not-so-secret Shop Pay, which boosts conversions up to 50%, which means way less carts being abandoned and way more sales for your business. When you think about businesses that are selling through the roof, like Aloe or Allbirds, sure, you think about a cool product, great brand, good marketing, but an often overlooked secret is actually the business behind the business making selling, and for shoppers buying. Simple. For millions of businesses, that business is Shopify.
So if you're into growing your business, your commerce platform better be ready to sell wherever your customers are, scrolling or strolling, on the web, in your store, in their feed, and everywhere in between. Businesses that sell more, sell on Shopify.
I've already said it before. I'll say it again. Big music consumer. Love getting the records in the mail. No idea what I've ordered 6 months ago. Boom. Hey, where's that thing? Shopify's got it right there.
Yeah, it's all tracked right there.
Uh-huh. Anyways, yeah, it really helps my old man brain because I can't remember all this stuff. So it's great to have everything tracked in one place. Upgrade your business and get the same checkout experience as all those retailers. Sign up for your $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/newsday, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/newsday to upgrade your selling today. Shopify.com/newsday.
All right, back to the news now with your daily rundown of what those young boys, those little boys over at Elon Musk's Department of Government Efficiency have gotten their little Cheeto fingers on this time. So, oh, good. It's the USDA. Don't need that.
Yeah.
Now, you would hope that in the context of the U.S. Department of Agriculture, efficiency would mean devoting as many resources as possible to dealing with the current bird flu epidemic affecting the egg supply chain. But you'd, of course, be wrong, because actually they're firing a bunch of people and actively making the bird flu situation even worse.
Oh.
Very efficient. And yeah, that's resulted in yet another example of a classic Elon Musk situation that we're seeing more and more of these days. Here's the Washington Post.
The U.S. Department of Agriculture said Tuesday that it is moving to correct the accidental firing of several people working on the federal government's response to an outbreak of avian influenza, commonly known as bird flu. While the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention says there is a low risk of the public contracting the disease, the USDA firings come as bird flu is wreaking havoc on the agriculture sector and as egg prices soar to a record high. The job cuts are part of a Trump administration overhaul of the federal government, including attempts to gut national health agencies, halt scientific reports and grants, and put a hold on multi-million-dollar programs to combat malaria, Ebola, and tuberculosis abroad. Although several positions supporting HPAI, bird flu, were notified of their terminations over the weekend, we are working to swiftly rectify the situation and rescind those letters, a statement from the USDA said. In a Friday statement ahead of the cuts, the USDA touted its pursuit of an aggressive plan to optimize its workforce. And Secretary Brooke Rollins said she welcomes DOGE's efforts at USDA, referring to the Elon Musk-led U.S. DOGE service.
So, yeah, we saw it last week with the Department of Energy. Like, how many people do we really need keeping track of our country's nukes? Just, I don't know, fire half of them or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, hello? Can you please come back to work?
Yeah.
You know, you got to break a few eggs. Got to break a few very expensive eggs.
They're doing to the government what early YouTubers did to watermelons with rubber bands.
Yeah.
They're waiting until it actually just fucking explodes, and they're going, oh, well,
okay,
I guess I got to go buy a new watermelon.
So I'll just use one less rubber band next time.
Yeah, they're trying to piece back the watermelon. Yeah. It just blew apart the rim.
Put the watermelon back together.
Should be easy.
So anyway, this kind of thing, it's not just bad for public health and the price of eggs. It's also bad for chicken farmers, many of whom are represented in Congress by Republicans, who increasingly find themselves in the awkward position of praising Doge while meekly begging Doge to please be more careful. Here's NBC News. The layoffs concerned a number of Republican lawmakers who privately warned the Trump administration that such cuts could hamper the government's bird flu response and asked them to reconsider, according to two Republican sources with direct knowledge of the situation. Lawmakers had received little guidance from the administration about the recent program cuts and staff terminations at USDA, which sources said has frustrated Republicans on the House Agriculture Committee. The panel, which oversees the USDA, provided a briefing to its members over the weekend to try to provide some more clarity to lawmakers. They need to be more cautious. Representative Don Bacon, Republican of Nebraska, a member of the Agriculture Committee.
Sure.
Mr. Bacon on the Agriculture Committee, my God.
Nominative determinism, baby.
Don Bacon, a member of the Agriculture Committee, told NBC News of the Doge team. There's an old saying, measure twice, cut once. Well, they're measuring once and having to cut twice. Some of this stuff they're going to have to return back. I just wish they'd make a better decision up front.
Yeah, well, that's not the fucking point, is it?
Yeah, that's kind of, you're not going to get what you're asking for.
No.
Not from these people especially.
This is about as close as you'll get so far to Republicans doing the news day.
All right, back to the news now with your daily rundown of what those young boys, those little boys over at Elon Musk's Department of Government Efficiency have gotten their little Cheeto fingers on this time. So, oh, good. It's the USDA. Don't need that.
Yeah.
Now, you would hope that in the context of the U.S. Department of Agriculture, efficiency would mean devoting as many resources as possible to dealing with the current bird flu epidemic affecting the egg supply chain. But you'd, of course, be wrong, because actually they're firing a bunch of people and actively making the bird flu situation even worse.
Oh.
Very efficient. And yeah, that's resulted in yet another example of a classic Elon Musk situation that we're seeing more and more of these days. Here's the Washington Post.
The U.S. Department of Agriculture said Tuesday that it is moving to correct the accidental firing of several people working on the federal government's response to an outbreak of avian influenza, commonly known as bird flu. While the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention says there is a low risk of the public contracting the disease, the USDA firings come as bird flu is wreaking havoc on the agriculture sector and as egg prices soar to a record high. The job cuts are part of a Trump administration overhaul of the federal government, including attempts to gut national health agencies, halt scientific reports and grants, and put a hold on multi-million-dollar programs to combat malaria, Ebola, and tuberculosis abroad. Although several positions supporting HPAI, bird flu, were notified of their terminations over the weekend, we are working to swiftly rectify the situation and rescind those letters, a statement from the USDA said. In a Friday statement ahead of the cuts, the USDA touted its pursuit of an aggressive plan to optimize its workforce. And Secretary Brooke Rollins said she welcomes Doge's efforts at USDA, referring to the Elon Musk-led U.S. Doge service.
So, yeah, we saw it last week with the Department of Energy. Like, how many people do we really need keeping track of our country's nukes? Just, I don't know, fire half of them or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, hello? Can you please come back to work?
Yeah.
You know, you got to break a few eggs.
This is...
Got to break a few very expensive eggs.
They're doing to the government what early YouTubers did to watermelons with rubber bands.
Yeah.
They're waiting until it actually just fucking explodes, and they're going, oh, well,
okay.
I guess I got to go buy a new watermelon.
So I'll just use one less rubber band next time.
Yeah, they're trying to piece back the watermelon.
Yeah.
It just blew apart the
Put the
rim.
watermelon back together.
Should be easy.
So anyway, this kind of thing, it's not just bad for public health and the price of eggs, it's also bad for chicken farmers, many of whom are represented in Congress by Republicans, who increasingly find themselves in the awkward position of praising Doge while meekly begging Doge to please be more careful. Here's NBC News. The layoffs concerned a number of Republican lawmakers who privately warned the Trump administration that such cuts could hamper the government's bird flu response and asked them to reconsider, according to two Republican sources with direct knowledge of the situation. Lawmakers had received little guidance from the administration about the recent program cuts and staff terminations at USDA, which sources said has frustrated Republicans on the House Agriculture Committee. The panel, which oversees the USDA, provided a briefing to its members over the weekend to try to provide some more clarity to lawmakers. They need to be more cautious. Representative Don Bacon, Republican of Nebraska, a member of the Agriculture Committee.
Sure.
Mr. Bacon on the Agriculture Committee, my God.
Nominative determinism, baby.
Don Bacon, a member of the Agriculture Committee, told NBC News of the Doge team. There's an old saying, measure twice, cut once. Well, they're measuring once and having to cut twice. Some of this stuff they're going to have to return back. I just wish they'd make a better decision up front.
Yeah, well, that's not the fucking point, is it?
Yeah, that's kind of, you're not going to get what you're asking for.
No.
Not from these people especially.
This is about as close as you'll get so far to Republicans doing the leopards are eating my face now.
We're getting that a lot, unfortunately, from federal workers.
Yeah.
In the especially the r/Fed News subreddit is like one of my go-to subreddits these days because it's all it's the best inside look at what's actually happening because none of the shit that's happening is like transparent.
There was one recently about a military veteran who was working at the VA. Where it's just like, you cannot, like, I'm the only one in that building that's doing this vital job. Yeah. Also, I worked in the fucking army for 25 years before I got, like, it's just.
Yeah, a lot of these people lose it. I mean, it seems like most of the people posting on the subreddit, you know, like, kind of saw this coming.
Yes.
But there are people on there who definitely voted for Trump and are definitely blindsided by all this.
I've seen a couple posts that are like, they're torn, and the comments seem to be pretty torn too over like, hey, I'm a career government employee who, you know, my family's all MAGA people and I just got fired.
Yeah, like, they're like, you'll find another job.
Yeah, and they're like, should I just delete them from my life or should I tell them exactly what happened and what their votes caused? And people are like, no, half people are like, no, just don't ever talk to them, or if you do, it's just gonna piss them off more. And the other half are like, they'll never learn unless they see how it's affecting the people that they love and care about.
Yeah, there's a lot of really sad stories of people's MAGA parents basically like essentially refusing to believe them. Just being like, well, you must have done something wrong.
I mean,
you must have been bad at your job. Anyway, you'll find a new one.
I don't want to bring this up because this is so tragic, but it is a direct result of the stuff that's been happening over the past month. But there was news coming out about a very young girl committing suicide because she was being bullied about her parents' immigration status.
In North Texas, around Dallas. Yeah, all of her classmates were being like, ICE is gonna deport you and your parents, and yeah, she fucking killed herself.
Yeah, it's like being of Arab descent just after 9/11. It is all this like very. I mean, racist sentiment that's being kicked up intentionally.
Well, let's be clear, the Arabs aren't off the hook either. That never went away.
I know, I'm just saying.
We just have more racists now.
Yeah.
Anyway, in a similar vein to those Republicans on the USDA, the Agricultural Board, like Mr. Bacon, Republicans are increasingly upset that the various arbitrary cuts that Elon Musk is making to the government with no regard for the budget they themselves passed is affecting things that they actually want funded. Because, you know, they did put the whole budget together. They got to choose the things that they wanted to give money to. And now that they've been kind of made redundant in the whole process. Which is
because there's a king now. Actually, there's two kings.
The most important role Congress has is discretionary spending.
Now, they're kind of getting a taste of what it's like when the government isn't working because the guy in charge is not allowing it to.
But they have to like pretend that actually this is cool.
Yeah.
Actually, he's doing everything I wish I could have done.
I love it, Mr. Trump.
So here's the Washington Post. Republican senators find themselves in an unusual position these days, begging Trump officials to release funds they themselves appropriated. Senators have in recent days made the case to cabinet secretaries and other Trump officials to let money flow back into their states. They're trying to finagle exceptions to President Donald Trump's sweeping executive orders or cuts made by billionaire Elon Musk's U.S. Doge service that frees hundreds of billions of dollars, including money for farmers and infrastructure projects. That push comes as the administration has also sought to fire a wide swath of federal employees, some of whom live in red states.
Even as many Republicans praise the ultimate goal of streamlining the federal government, some GOP senators spanning the ideological spectrum, from Katie Boyd Britt of Alabama to Lisa Murkowski of Alaska, have lobbied the Trump administration to reconsider its cuts or pauses to federal grants that support biomedical research and labs, or for programs supporting Native American tribes. But Senator Tommy Tuberville of Alabama, a close Trump ally who supports the cuts, said last week that begging for funds may be the new normal, suggesting the lawmakers could lobby Musk to save spending they've allocated for their states as he slashes and cancels contracts at agencies. If we have to lobby for, hey, wait a minute, what about the bridge in Birmingham, or there's a bridge in Mobile, or whatever, I think that could be very possible, Tuberville told reporters.
This is fine. No, this is fine. I like it, actually.
This is, again, another thing where it's becoming clear that this is intentional, because if you just destroy everything and then make everyone ask for it back, you are in control. Just like the whole Eric Adams thing.
Get down on your knees.
You don't have a choice anymore.
Say pretty please, Mr. President.
This is what happens when you elect a fucking king.
Yeah.
And luckily, we have jester's privilege. Because he's saying that he's a king, we are legally protected under jester's privilege.
I think you'll find that in the Magna Carta and English common law.
That's right.
There's tremendous legal precedent for jester's privilege.
Yep.
Which we invoke.
Yep.
I invoke jester's privilege.
Every episode starts with the invocation. We are merely joking.
I don't know if I'm joking right now. We'll see. We'll see if we do have to, in fact, invoke jester's privilege
That's right.
in a court of law.
Well, they go on to list several other examples, like funding for university research in Alabama, EPA grants to build green school buses in West Virginia, and farmers in Kansas who no longer can sell food to USAID. Whoops. In every case, elected Republicans are reaching out directly to members of the administration or even tweeting at them to grovel and ask that they please make an exception for the thing that actually affects them and their re-election chances. Oh, please, Mr. President, I'll do anything. I'll shine your shoes. And that's all while having to pretend that they actually think it's really cool that the most important part of their job as legislators has been taken away from them and handed over to a ketamine-addicted Nazi with 13 kids.
That's awesome.
Or more kids.
Probably a lot more. I love it.
But hey, at least
it's great. I'm so happy that I don't really do anything anymore. I was elected to serve the people of my state, and there's nothing I can really do about that anymore.
Permanent vacation.
Because Elon Musk is doing it for me.
But hey, at least he's saving money for the country, right?
Lots of it.
Nope, he's not actually. It turns out a bunch of really important federal agencies don't actually cost that much to run. And by gutting them, we're really not getting much in return, and certainly not enough to justify the consequences. So Elon's now just straight up lying about how much money he's actually saving. I saw it compared to, like, first of all, you're not going to get a discount on your taxes from all this.
Fuck no.
And I've seen the comparison of, like, okay, if a doctor cuts off your leg, technically you weigh less.
Yeah, savings.
It's an instant diet. There you go.
Yeah.
You weigh less. What's the problem? Oh, you can't walk around?
If you, if you rip out all the electrical outlets in your house and turn off the heating and air conditioning, you're going to be spending a lot less money. You're saving money.
Yeah.
So that's great.
Yeah.
Anyway, here's Bloomberg. The federal cost-cutting effort, dubbed the Department of Government Efficiency, says it has saved $55 billion in federal spending so far, but its website only accounts for $16.6 billion of that. And that's before factoring in an error in the data published on Doge's website that mislabels a contract as $8 billion, which was later corrected in the federal database to only be $8 million.
Wow, that's a lot of zeros go missing.
That cuts nearly in half the total of Doge's itemized savings, including from contracts and leases, to about $8.6 billion. Elon Musk, President Donald Trump's close ally, who has been the figurehead of Doge, has pledged that the amorphous cost-cutting enterprise would provide maximum transparency and that all of our actions are fully public. But Doge's accounting raises questions about the reliability of their self-reporting and their level of accountability. Despite its name, it's not a department, but rather an office within the White House that operates outside the gaze of traditional federal watchdogs, including inspectors general.
The most expensive contract that Doge claims to have slashed is $8 billion to D&G Support Services, LLC, to provide services for the Office of Diversity and Civil Rights within U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, starting in late 2022. Except the math doesn't support an $8 billion contract value. In recent years, ICE's entire annual budget hovered around $9 billion. The agency's largest awarded contracts of the past 3 fiscal years, according to usaspending.gov, were $800 million for charter flight services and $787 million for transporting unaccompanied children and families.
They're spending 95% of their budget on woke.
Yeah.
Can you believe it?
Yeah, crazy. Mr. Musk, even with your inflated estimates, could you compare that to the grants and subsidies that you've been given by the government for just your business?
We're not going to talk about that.
Yeah, that's right, because it's fucking more.
It is something that's like crazy to me is that, you know, in the course of doing this job, this very relatively unimportant, stupid, goofy job of ours, I frequently come across things I see on like social media where I'm like, that's crazy. We should cover that in the show. And then I look it up and I realize it's like an old story, or it's like just not true, or someone got the details wrong. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, good thing I checked on that. And meanwhile, like Elon fucking Musk is just like digging through the garbage at like the IRS.
Missed 3 zeros.
And just like getting shit so wrong, or like not taking a second to be like, hey, this seems insane. Is it actually true?
Yeah.
He's just publishing it.
I've come to expect that because that's all he's done on social media for the past 5 years. He doesn't vet anything.
The other day, he shared a post. Someone said this is like, oh, like the migrant situation in the UK is crazy. Look at this. And it was a picture from The Dark Knight Rises. It was a movie still.
Yeah, I saw it.
God.
But it's just a visual representation of what's actually happening.
I hate him so much.
Well, nevertheless, hey, even if it's just $8.6 billion in savings, I mean, that's not nothing. If we divide that by the U.S. population, that is nearly $26 per person that we are saving.
Cha-ching.
And that's not we saving. That's for some reason.
Yeah, you're not getting $26. You're not getting the $26, but it's nice to know that,
you know,
each of us,
we and getting far less in return.
Yeah, you still do have to pay taxes.
Yeah, and not receive anything for it because that's the American way.
You're gonna pay probably a little bit more because guys like Elon, they've been paying too much, so they gotta pay less.
Yeah.
But you know, if they were to give the money from Doge to everyone, they're not going to. But if you would get $26, that's a who's on the 20?
Andrew Jackson.
That's a Jackson. That's a Lincoln, and that's a Washington, baby.
Until we do away with the $1 bill.
Go buy yourself an egg.
But how many Dogecoin is that?
I don't know.
Anyways, all we had to do to save that $26 per person was kneecap or effectively shut down multiple key federal government agencies.
Yeah, worth it, I'd say.
That's the art of the deal. But that all that money saved is just extra money that we can give Elon and his various companies that will eventually take over all of these contracts.
Yeah.
So, you know,
he's running like 8 companies now. What's a few more? Put him in charge of everything.
I mean, he's already said that like Tesla is not a car company, so Tesla can just do all of the government projects.
He's got those big robots.
And then SpaceX, of course, would take over for NASA, and you know, X is literally the everything app. So all aspects, banking,
everything,
insurance,
it's the only app you need.
Yes.
We're going to turn the internet into AOL in the mid-90s.
How does he do it all? Well, he doesn't. He's a fucking idiot who doesn't know what he's doing and who is...
He hires competent people some of the time. They do the work. He takes the credit.
Yeah. Getting less and less competent, though, because anyone who was smart and had any kind of goodwill or good people skills or just a good read on someone or bare minimum moral standards isn't working for this guy anymore.
Yeah.
And that's why they need the H-1B visas, baby.
We need slaves.
That's right.
I need my slaves.
You build a lot of Golden Gate bridges.
Yeah. Not that we would do that. That's an infrastructure project that, like, helps transportation and shit. We're not going to do that. We're definitely.
But if we did do it, it would be the most evil fucking way possible, because that's the American way.
Build the most evil bridge. I'm going to make the Golden Gate Bridge, but, like, there's nothing stopping you from killing yourself on it.
Yeah. That is basically what Trump
The safety net is DEI.
Yes, that feels so much like what's happened in the past couple of days, where it's like the net's there.
Yeah.
It's already there. It's probably saved a bunch of lives already. And for no reason, Trump's like, we took the, hey, San Francisco,
we saved so much money by getting rid of that stupid suicide prevention net.
Yep.
Which was woke, by the way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's on the gayest bridge in the country.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
God. Anyway, that's our show.
Click the like button even if you hate the world. Click the like button because it helps us out. It really does. You know, I'm just kind of thinking about how nice you are when you click it. Wow, what a great person. Anyways, if you want to be better than the person that just clicked the like button, click the like button and leave a comment.
Yeah.
Or, hey, you know what? Click the join button. Become a contributing member.
Yeah.
Put your money where your mouth is.
Put that $26 that Elon Musk just saved you.
You know,
where your mouth is.
The price of eggs has gone up. Everything's been going up, but the price of a subscription for us, it's always $5.
You just jinx it, though. They're going to probably raise the price. That's true.
All right, well, we got to get out of here. Hey, the other videos are up. We'll see you soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Flashback. Hostile RTXD in your AO.
Argentina launched a meme coin through their president Javier Milei, or at least that's what people thought. Now there are currently accusations of scams, insider trading, and the president of Argentina may be charged with fraud and faces possible impeachment. I'm here to break down what happened because I got insider access to the real story. I even got offered control of the missing $100 million plus that was made in ill-gotten gains. Welcome back to the $10 million studio. Our story starts on February 14th, 2025. Javier Milei, the president of Argentina, tweeted about a meme coin called Libra. The details at first were sparse. Quote, liberal Argentina growth. This private project will focus on encouraging growth of the Argentine economy, funding small businesses and Argentine adventures. The world wants to invest in Argentina. And it linked to a website which called it a token with purpose, where 50% of the tokens were allocated to Argentina growth. And I'll admit, it sounds nice. However, as the price skyrocketed to billions of dollars in market cap, people got worried because there appeared to be insider trading. And that's when Javier Milei suddenly deleted his tweet, saying he, quote, obviously has no connection with the project, and, quote, I was not aware of the details of the project. Understandably, the price crashed after this, but in the rubble, people discovered that the team responsible for launching the token may have walked away with over $100 million being taken out of the liquidity pool, meaning they may have gotten rich while everyone else got rugged. It was about this time I began to investigate, and I got an anonymous phone call from someone who claimed to know where this all started, Tech Forum Argentina, which was an event where you could pay as a blockchain company to be a sponsor. According to a source who was there and paid for it, part of it included a meet and greet with Javier Milei, the president of Argentina. This person was excited, but disappointed to find out that once they got there, they were invited to sign an even more expensive contract where two of the guys who ran the event, Mauricio Novelli and Manuel Godoy, were going to basically advise you on how to have blockchain technology in Argentina. Basically, they got you access to Milei. The person I spoke to did not pay for it. Someone who did was Kip Protocol. And the strategic partner of Tech Forum in 2025 is Kelsier. Both of those companies are going to be extremely important, and the people who run them are called Julian Pei and Hayden Davis. Pretty soon, a plan was hatched between Mauricio, Manuel from Tech Forum Argentina, and Julian and Hayden to launch a project together. It was going to be called Libra and support the Argentinian economy, and President Milei agreed to tweet about it. The division of labor was basically that Mauricio and Manuel were the connection, it seems, Hayden was handling the launch of the token, and Julian was going to set up a company to distribute the funds to Argentinian businesses. Of course, they never got that far because 24 hours after the launch of this coin, the president of Argentina was being called a scammer, and I got a message on my phone that I didn't expect. Hi, CoffeeZilla. I'd like to talk with you about the Milei launch. I was heavily responsible for it. The initials of the person were HD. I'm guessing Hayden Davis, but I couldn't be sure. So I asked for a selfie to confirm his identity, and I did cross-reference it with his photo with Milei, where Milei said he was a crypto advisor. It was indeed the same person who launched the coin. Hayden explained that he'd like to execute a plan and needed my help. He said Milei and his team basically botched it, and quote, I'd like to sit down and make sure all the money that they took out gets back into people's hands correctly, every dollar. Let me know if you'd like to interview and discuss in person. Now, I was confused why he needed me in person exactly, and he explained, I'm happy to go live on an interview pending we chat beforehand. I'll even show you all the wallets pumped back into the chart live if you want. He had over $100 million in what he called multi-sigs, which require 2 or more people to sign on every transaction. I asked, well, who else is a signer? And he replied, quote, just me. He said, I want to do it alongside you. All I care about is knowing it's in safe hands. I don't mind turning the keys over or adding you to the multi-sigs. Translation, he wants to hand over his $100 million problem into my control. And I was thinking to myself, of course, hell no. You're not gonna pass me your nightmare. Of course, I did say that we should talk because I had seen his recent public response and it didn't really go so well. In it, Hayden put forth his plan, where instead of trying to refund people with the $100 million he had a different idea.
What happened with Libra, I think there's many things I could say,
There's only certain elements that I could control the launch. Definitely things didn't go according to plan, but I think addressing the elephant in the room, which is in the next 24, 48 hours, unless somebody has a better idea, any funds that I've been able to get back in my possession from all the parties involved, I intend to put right back into the chart and either burn or lock on the liquidity side.
Right. He wants to put the money back into Libra, but this kind of creates the same problems where it's like, okay, well, this just benefits insiders and people who have tons of the token. But after watching this, I was also concerned with a different problem. See, myself and the research firm Bubble Maps had been doing a lot of work tracking Melania coin for a while. Yes, the US president's wife. She had launched a coin, and we were concerned that the same wallet which launched that seemed to have also launched Libra. Even worse, they had both been sniped by the same person who created the tokens, or the same network of wallets. Now, if you don't know what sniping is, it's where you buy a coin earlier than anyone else at cheaper prices. Usually, you know something in advance. And not only did these connected wallets buy Melania and Libra coins early, they also sold those coins early for millions in profits. So now, not only was I being offered control of $100+ million from the guy who launched Argentina's coin, apparently he also launched Melania Trump's coin, possibly sniped those coins, and also sold them for millions of dollars. But, you know, I realized it's not enough to just have blockchain evidence. There's only one way to really know for sure. I'd have to confront Hayden directly. But given his massive legal issues that may be on the horizon, I figured there's no way he would take a call with me, though. Right? But if you launch the coin, isn't it unfair for you to snipe the coin?
So I would say no. And I would say that for a couple different reasons.
Yep, I was wrong. He did agree to get on a call for an hour where he admitted to sniping Libra token and Melania token, later saying, though, it wasn't him directly, it may have been someone else on his team.
Most of the time when we're sniping, we're attempting to avoid other snipers getting in, right? So whether that's, and by the way, I don't conduct snipes.
However, I then got an interview with another insider in these coins who says that Hayden does snipe tokens personally. How does he know? Well, he claims he's seen it before. He was in the room with Hayden when it happened on another project called Enron Token, which you might not be surprised to realize I've also covered in another video. Just introduce yourself real quick for everyone who doesn't know you.
I'm the founder of DeFi Tuna. We're just providing leverage for liquidity providers. That's pretty much us. So I was part of the Enron project launch. I come in, there's this hookah bar where everyone's smoking hookah. And I see on the far end, there's a bodyguard and their whole family sitting down, Gideon, Hayden, across is Dr. Tom, daughters, and then his sons. And they're all about to launch Enron. They have like 10 minutes before the launch, they all have snipers ready with a contract address on the snipers. Sniper bots. They're like all waiting. They're all, you know, smoke coming out of their ears. They're all smoking like crazy on caffeine. The token launches and everyone's pressing. And the wonderful thing was this. You know, I'm looking at it, and they're like, oh, somebody got just before us. And, you know, and everyone's just arguing between each other. But, you know, they all still got earlier and they're still in a plus. And they're like, you know, and I'm looking at it, I'm like, you know, it's like a junkie house.
This interview was crazy. And remember, the guy we're talking about, this junkie house, is also the person who launched the president's wife's meme coin and then the Argentina's president's meme coin. It's insane. In the case of the Melania coin specifically, side note, the co-founder of our whistleblower actually says he was ordered to like sell these coins, but, you know, do it in such a way where it's not illegal because no one will know.
And they were saying everything's legal, everything is good as long as nothing can be tracked. That was
yes.
Is one of the best liquidity providers that I know. I've seen or heard of. He understands at very deep level. You know, he's done an excellent job. But one thing that they kept against him is the fact that he didn't sell on the top, and he cost them millions of dollars. You know, up until even some recent discussions, like I have proof that they just keep bringing the subject up. Yeah, great, but he didn't sell. Melania cost us millions.
At the top.
Yeah.
At the top. That's right. Supposedly, this guy got berated for, costing the millions of dollars by not selling at the tippity top. I did ask Hayden about profiting from Melania token, and here's where we had a bit of a confusion on what exactly we meant by, did you swap it? Did you sell it? I didn't swap it. I just sold it.
There was no money made from the Melania team on we didn't take any liquidity out. Zero.
You said y'all didn't sell any liquidity, but
didn't swap liquidity. Didn't swap liquidity. Didn't swap into single-sided. I didn't say there was no money sold. There's a difference between swapping the liquidity and selling liquidations. Those are two different things.
Okay, so y'all swapped. You didn't sell, or the other way around?
No, other way around.
Sold, you didn't swap.
Yeah.
Well, there you have it. Two independent pieces of evidence from people who were on the inside of the Melania token, saying that Hayden and his team sniped tokens and wanted to dump for high profit secretly, while Hayden himself does admit that they, sold, they just didn't swap. Of course, I also obtained insider texts from Hayden Davis and his team on another project, this one called Mates, where an insider asks the following, quote, you want continue pump or you want to distribute all Mates tokens ASAP, aka sell? Hayden replies, we are trying to max extract on this one. That max extraction supposedly led to 7,000 Solana, or roughly $1.3 million. And I do personally believe a lot of this is probably illegal. Whether it will be prosecuted, though, by our gutted regulators is another matter entirely. Right now, we seem to be in a race in America to deregulate cryptocurrency, meaning behavior like this is unlikely to ever be punished. For now, I just want to show people that these meme coins are deeply rigged financial vehicles for screwing regular people and transferring wealth to the top, to the insiders, and people like Hayden, they're everywhere in this industry. I should also mention, while I'm on the subject, by the way, that it's not only always the people themselves, it's also the platforms that sometimes are part of this. Platforms that launch meme coins obviously benefit from trading volume instead of price, meaning even if you lose, they make tons of money. And it's been a suspicion of a lot of people that some of them may play a role in some of these insider launches. Today, though, we got a little bit of evidence. In my investigations, one platform kept coming up, Meteora. They launched Trump Coin, Melania Coin, Libra, and many others on their platform. And they were crucial to giving Hayden Davis tons of business through his company, Kelsier. Meteora's CEO, Ben Chow, describes it as, I do know the Kelsier team well. Now, they were confronted about the fact that Kelsier and Hayden were sniping their own tokens, and Ben said, well, he had no idea. He's shocked by it. This clip is a little long, but it's worth it.
Kelsier is very much affiliated with M3, with everything. It's very close. To be there and just see how. Sorry, but
actually no. Please tell me, because actually I don't know this.
Like I'm sitting down and I'm seeing, and everyone's got their phone. Everyone knows the contract address. Like Gideon, Hayden, Dr. Tom, everyone's sitting at the table, and they're all with their phones. They all have snipe bots ready. They'll have all the CA.
They're all sniping it? It's them sniping.
But Ben, it's not only that. There is even. I'm 100% sure that it's also Jake involved. Everyone's involved. I'm sure the influencers involved. Look.
Me? Oh my God.
And like, there are people that bypass them, like do it faster than them, and it's like, look, the whole thing just looks rotten to the very core.
Yeah, I really don't know if this guy is genuinely reacting or this is like some kind of Oscar award-winning performance. Like, what? No way. I had no idea. The people I've been handing business to have been sniping our own tokens. No idea. Meanwhile, I asked Hayden directly if Ben Chow would have known these snipes were happening. He responded, quote, I would say he wouldn't have been surprised, but he wouldn't have been involved. Now, that's interesting. And if it's true, it would mean that Ben's shocked reaction to this project sniping itself would be a little hard to believe. Meanwhile, by the way, Hayden Davis also doesn't really take credit for some of this. He implies that the Melania team itself was part of the reason they decided to snipe the coin.
Were you part of the Melania launch, and was that sniped as well?
I mean, look, I think that, I told you like beforehand before this started, I'm happy to share the truth, but I mean, you're asking a question that's it's just, I mean, I'll answer, but it's factually going to put me into a lot of danger, which is fine. I'll answer. I was part of it. I think the team did want to snipe it because of how big the snipe was on Trump's.
So let me get this straight. Bin Chao has no idea. It wasn't Hayden's idea. Can the real sniper please stand up? All of these people just deny. Either way, though, Bin Chao agreed that the Libra situation in particular was so bad that he would have to step down from the company, regardless of whether he knew, because he called it SBF level, as in Sam Bankman-Fried and FTX.
This is like 202. This is FTX type of.
Fucking hell, man. I feel sick. I feel so sick, man. Holy shit. I feel really, really sick. Oh my god.
This is like Doc One or what's his name type of money. I mean,
This is SBF level, man. I feel so sick. Because I gave him Melania. I didn't know he was a rebel. I feel so sick. I feel like I'm super exposed to because I enabled it that I should not have enabled.
Hardpoint active.
I'm gonna have to step down.
You know, I do have to agree with Bin Chao here. This is starting to make me feel sick too. Not because my platform enabled millions of dollars to be, quote, max extracted from retail, but because most people buying these coins have no idea how corrupt these launches are. With manipulative market making, sniping insider selling, the deck is just totally stacked against you as a regular person. But don't take my word for it. Hayden, the guy we've been talking to, who literally runs these things, agreed.
It is an insider's game. This is an unregulated casino. Like, if you're a retail trader thinking you're gonna go make millions off of meme coins, you better study your off.
Well, honestly, I do appreciate his honesty. It's an insider's game, and as the saying goes, it's a big club, and you're not in it. Speaking of that, by the way, there was one person so far who has been refunded their losses in this whole debacle. Dave Portnoy. Dave was going to do an insider deal with Libra token for free tokens where he tweeted about the coin. That deal was canceled, though, because Hayden told him basically not to tell anyone about the free coins, and Dave disagreed with that. But Dave did put $5 million of his own dollars in the coin in the hopes of obviously making money like everyone else. But when the coin crashed, he lost almost everything. Behind the scenes, though, Dave got bailed out. Hayden Davis gave him his money back, which Dave has admitted publicly. So I guess, you know, for the big traders who are celebrities, they get their money back, roughly $5 million back, because I guess they're real victims. But refunding everyone who lost money, that's an insane idea.
Whether I refund people, they're still gonna be pissed, right? Refund people on a meme coin, which sounds insane. Or I inject back. People are gonna be mad either way.
Instead, the current plan is to once again dump the money back in the chart, which will disproportionately benefit insiders who know the timing. And what about Javier Milei? Can't forget about him. The president of Argentina is currently facing charges of fraud from the opposition party and threats of impeachment. Today, Milei finally addressed the Libra token and said the following.
I broadcasted it, I didn't recommend it, I didn't promote it. The reality is if you go to the casino and lose money, what is the claim? It is about 5,000 people. And surely the chance that they are Argentinians is very remote.
Well, there you go. Pretty much your standard denial. I didn't do it, and if I did, they deserved it. And if they didn't deserve it, well, they weren't Argentinian anyways. One thing I will be clear about, though, is that all of the insiders I've spoken to so far claim that Milei himself made no money from this project. It was these other people who had access that were selling access to him. Whether you believe that is another matter entirely. But what is abundantly clear is that this was a massive failure for Argentina as a whole. It's an embarrassing situation where Milei allowed a 26-year-old to collect $100 million off his name purporting to be for small businesses. And that's that same person sniped the coin as well, Melania's coin, Enron, and many others. Or his team did, or a team told him to. It's so far unclear, but the sniping itself is uncontested, as testified by Hayden Davis himself and an insider who was in the room. In the aftermath, there are possible impeachments, people possibly stepping down from their company, and millions of dollars in damages. And that is the story of the Argentinian meme coin disaster.
Hardpoint identified. Hardpoint is secure. Hardpoint active. Contact the hardpoint locked down. We got the lead. Now hold it. Hardpoint located. Hostiles have the hardpoint.
Yesterday, Trump signed an executive order that significantly advances the agenda of Project 2025 by placing control of independent regulatory agencies in the hands of the president and his loyalists. This will have far-reaching impacts on everything from the CIA to employment discrimination to free speech to whether or not major companies are held accountable for flagrant violations of the laws. His supporters say it's simply a move to bring our government back in line with the Constitution. But what the Constitution actually says about this is far more murky than they let on, and the people who stand to gain the most from this are once more the billionaires and oligarchs in Trump's ear. Let's get into it. Another executive order that Trump signed this week that you may have missed seeks to expand access to IVF, an issue that has been hotly contested lately. This caught my eye on The Independent, which used the headline, Trump signs executive order to aggressively reduce IVF costs after campaign pledge to make it free. This caught my eye because IVF has been so controversial lately, especially amongst Republicans as they've been trying to work to get rid of it. So I wanted to know more. Using the Ground News browser extension, it's helpful to see that this news source has a right-leaning bias. I genuinely love the Ground News web browser extension because I can see it while I browse news articles, and if I want to see how other sources are framing the story, I can click on full coverage. On the Ground News website, you can see that there are 147 sources covering this topic. Among them, the left publication Pink News uses the headline, Trump signs executive order to expand IVF access so families can have more babies, while the right-leaning Town Hall frames it as Trump fulfills another campaign promise with latest executive order, which focuses on two different sides of the same issue, a clear example of how consuming news from only one perspective can limit your understanding of a situation. This is where Ground News comes in and why I've been using them for over a year. Today's partner, Ground News, is an app and website that offers tools to help you critically analyze the news you read, providing context to understand the full picture. By using the Ground News Vantage subscription, I can also see the blind spot feed, where I can see stories disproportionately covered by one side of the political spectrum. I feel better equipped to make sense of what's happening in the world without being influenced by just one perspective. I'm always really impressed with Ground News and genuinely think that they're a great resource. So if you want to stay informed on U.S. politics and more, scan my QR code or click the link in the description, or go to ground.news/Legia to get 40% off the same Vantage plan I use, which comes to about $5 per month. Ground News is subscriber funded, so they don't rely on ads that could introduce bias. Subscribing supports my channel and an independent team working to keep the media transparent. Thanks, Ground News. Okay, first let's get a handle on independent regulatory agencies, because that's what the order from yesterday is talking about. Unlike most agencies where there is a single director appointed by the president, independent agencies typically have a commission, board, or leadership body of 5 to 7 members. The president appoints these members and the Senate confirms, just like other agency heads, but the members serve set terms, usually 4 years, that are staggered, so there's never major turnover all at once, and there are statutory requirements that the president fill vacancies with members of both parties so that they don't come under control of whichever party happens to be in power, and they're less subject to the whims of politics. The president is only allowed to remove an independent agency head for incompetence, incapacity, neglect of duty, or other good cause. He can't just remove them willy-nilly because he doesn't like them. And obviously, that makes Trump very, very angry. Examples of independent agencies include the FEC, FCC, FTC, SEC, CIA, Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, NASA, OSHA, the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, the Office of Government Ethics, Social Security Administration, and more. The order Trump signed yesterday is called Ensuring Accountability for All Agencies. It claims that independent regulatory agencies are operating unaccountable to the president and thereby unaccountable to the will of the people who elect the president. So it says now all agency heads are accountable to the president and must submit all regulatory actions that they want to take to the executive office of the president for review. The order also gives the president and the Attorney General Pam Bondi authoritative interpretation power over what the law says, saying, quote, no employee of the executive branch acting in their official capacity may advance an interpretation of the law as the position of the United States that contravenes the president or the Attorney General's opinion on a matter of law. And this means that the attorneys at these agencies, like those at the SEC administering financial regulatory lawsuits against companies, do not get to do anything unless it perfectly aligns with Trump and Pam Bondi's official interpretations of the regulations that those very agencies have written themselves. The order applies to all independent regulatory agencies, but concerningly, it specifically mentions the Federal Election Commission. It also names the Federal Reserve, saying the Federal Reserve's handling of monetary policy is off limits to the president, so their ability to raise or lower interest rates, for example, but all of its other functions are fair game for presidential approval. A reminder that the Federal Reserve oversees the regulations of banks and financial institutions. Independent agencies must comply within 60 days and will receive guidance from the Director of the Office of Management and Budget. That director was just confirmed, and his name is Russell Vought. Vought is also temporarily the head of the CFPB, an independent agency that protects consumers from fraud. In his role there, he has laid off employees and halted funding. Vought will also oversee performance, standards, and management objectives for all independent agency heads under this new order. Russell Vought is definitely a name you should know. He served as the OMB director at the end of Trump's last administration. He is a Republican hardliner and, according to Vox, an open Christian nationalist who founded a think tank called the Center for Renewing America. He's a proponent of radical constitutionalism, which we'll talk about more in a sec, and a central architect of Project 2025. In a video dropped by ProPublica of Vought speaking at an event put on by his think tank, Vought says, and I quote, "We want the bureaucrats to be traumatically affected. When they wake up in the morning, we want them to not want to go to work because they are increasingly viewed as the villains. We want their funding to be shut down. We want to put them in trauma." So this guy is now the director of the Office of Management and Budget, which oversees all federal agencies and administers their budgets. This new order gives the president, and through him, Russell Vought, the right to control how independent regulatory agencies spend their money and what they spend it on. And if you're thinking, wait, Leja, I thought it was Congress who determined how federal money is spent. You'd be right. The Constitution gives Congress the power of the purse. But under Vought and others' radical constitutionalism, that's not really what the Constitution says. They believe in what's called the presidential impoundment power, that Congress can appropriate the money, but the president can decide whether or not it's actually spent and can order agencies to not spend anything if he wants to, which doesn't make logical sense that anyone at the founding thought that that was what they were doing when giving Congress the power of the purse, that the president could just ignore what Congress says. But sure, this order is just a continuation of actions Trump has already taken against independent agencies. He's already interfered with the CFPB and the National Labor Relations Board, which handles government relations with unions and regulates against anti-union activity. Its chair, Gwen Wilcox, was fired by Trump, and she's suing to contest her dismissal. Office of Special Counsel head Hampton Dellinger was fired in a one-sentence email earlier this month, and he has also sued the Trump administration, saying his termination was illegal under the law that protects independent agency heads from removal by the president, except in cases of neglect of duty, malfeasance, or inefficiency. A D.C. judge issued an order to allow Dellinger to keep his job as the case winds its way through court. Trump appealed, the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals denied Trump's request, and now it's made its way to the Supreme Court. It's the first time the Supreme Court has been given an opportunity to rule on Trump's power grab since he took office, which was somehow less than a month ago. So the central question here is about the president's removal power. Is he allowed to say who is in charge of these agencies that Congress explicitly created to be independent. Independent agencies have been part of the government for over 150 years. They grew in popularity, especially during the New Deal, which was when agency power generally expanded, and they've been the ire of conservatives ever since. Even still, the idea that the president gets to direct the activities of independent agencies goes against the accepted understanding of the Constitution as it's been understood for the 150 years since independent agencies became a thing. Now, that's not to say that the entire executive order is completely unconstitutional. According to legal experts, there is constitutional basis in the president requesting opinions from senior officials related to the duties of their offices. But giving the president the power to direct independent agency actions is against the will of Congress, the body responsible for creating the agencies. It is a separation of powers issue that Trump and his loyalists argue should fall in favor of greater concentration of power in one branch, the executive. So what do these people believe? Let's talk about the central tenet of radical constitutionalism that represents the goal of Project 2025 and what all of the chaos of the last month has been aiming towards, the unitary executive theory. What's insidious about the unitary executive theory, which I'm going to call UET for short, is that it's really easy to make it seem like it makes sense. Article 2 of the Constitution says the president is the head of the executive branch, that he must take care that all the laws be faithfully executed. Any agency Congress creates is part of the executive branch under this theory, and the president was elected by the people, so the agencies should all be answerable to the president in order to make government answerable to the will of the people. It's just what the Constitution says, they argue. And this theory has been promoted by the right since the Reagan administration, at least, to try to chip away at Congress's power and at any pockets of authority that they try to create that's independent of the president. It also furthers their agenda of dismantling the deep state and the many regulatory agencies that have popped up, especially since the Great Depression, when we realized, hey, actually there should be regulations in place to protect people and stuff. Per the Wall Street Journal, Amanda Tyler, a law professor at the University of California, Berkeley, said Congress turned to the independent agency structure well over a century ago to promote stability in government during a period of economic change. The idea behind independent agencies is to have insulation from the political winds, ensuring that we don't have wild volatility of policy, she said. If Trump prevails in wresting control of many of these agencies, that is the precedent in place for whoever succeeds him, potentially using that power for very different ends, she said, which indicates to me that they don't plan on having anyone in power in the future that would take the presidential power that they are concentrating and use it for, I don't know, leftist or progressive ends. The Supreme Court has 90 years of precedent that upholds the constitutionality of Congress barring the president from firing independent agency heads without cause. Trump's acting Solicitor General, Sarah Harris, has said that the administration plans to ask the Supreme Court to overturn that precedent. The case is called Humphrey's Executor versus the United States. William Humphrey was appointed by President Hoover to the Federal Trade Commission. Then Roosevelt came and tried to remove him for political reasons. Humphrey then died, so his executor sued to get his lost salary from the job he shouldn't have been terminated from, hence the name Humphrey's Executor. The court held that the nature of independent agencies is one of quasi-judicial and quasi-legislative powers. They set regulations, write laws, and then adjudicate those regulations. Their duties are not political or executive in nature, and therefore it was within Congress's right to limit presidential control over the independent agencies. They're not considered the, quote, arm or the eye of the executive. They do not answer to the directives of the president. They answer to the directives set forth in the congressionally written law that created them to begin with. The opinion says the power of removal here claimed for the president falls within this principle since its coercive influence threatens the independence of a commission which is not only wholly disconnected from the executive department, but which, as already fully appears, was created by Congress as a means of carrying into operation legislative and judicial powers, and as an agency of the legislative and judicial departments. There's also primary evidence around the founding of our country that indicates some of the framers believed that the president's power of removal absolutely had limits to only those who perform executive functions under the direction of the president. In Marbury versus Madison, a Supreme Court decision from 1803, one of the very first cases you read in your year one constitutional law class in law school, according to the Humphrey's Executor decision, quote, Mr. Madison quite evidently thought that since the duties of that office were not purely of an executive nature, but partook of the judiciary quality as well, a different rule in respect of executive executive removal might well apply. The Humphreys opinion clearly states, quote, whether the power of the president to remove an officer shall prevail over the authority of Congress to condition the power by fixing a definite term and precluding a removal except for cause will depend upon the character of the office. There's not a blanket rule that the president controls the heads of every single agency created by Congress. It depends on what that agency does and whether it's primarily executive as opposed to legislative or judicial. Independent agencies that create regulations and adjudicate said regulations explicitly away from the influence of the president are not performing executive functions. To say otherwise oversteps the authority of Congress and throws the checks and balances system into chaos. In 2020, the Supreme Court ruled that the CFPB structure was unconstitutional and allowed Trump to fire its director without cause. So there is precedent of this current court deciding to go along with these power grabs in contradiction to the Humphreys executive decision. And that's something that this court loves to do. Make up new precedent, and then a year or two later, point to the precedent they made and say, it's clearly a long-standing tradition. Look at all this precedent. None of this is normal. What presidents normally do is respect the independence of the agencies and try to avoid anything that might even make it seem like they're trying to interfere with their independence. Like, to give you an example, it was controversial when Obama urged the FCC chair to adopt net neutrality in a video that he posted online in 2014, or when the FTC chair visited Obama in the White House on the same day that Google officials were also on the premises while Google was actively under investigation. Republicans lost their shit when that happened. Now, Trump is like, oh no, you answer to me, and literally everything you do is now subject to my approval. This is a huge change of long-standing norms, which is, of course, the entire point. If we're going to talk about government efficiency, agencies are beneficial to the efficiency of government. By dedicating experts to the task of creating regulations around specific limited areas, it means that they know what they're doing and can do it efficiently. Unlike if it's all in the hands of the president who doesn't know jack shit about that topic area, leading to mistakes or complete deregulation, which is the point. They're trying to get rid of these regulations because that benefits businesses and moneyed interests. But complete deregulation also goes against the Constitution, which says that the president should make sure that the laws be faithfully executed. There are a lot of laws Congress has written. Running a country of 330 million people over 2.3 billion acres of land is incredibly complicated. The president can't by himself take care that the laws be faithfully executed when there are so many and it's so complex, which is why he needs agencies. Without agencies, the laws cannot be faithfully executed because there's no one there to execute them. And the president is knowingly removing experts in favor of political cronies with no understanding of what they're doing, leading to chaos, which produces waste and inefficiency. The idea of independent agencies reduces this potential for chaos by protecting from political upheaval every time a new president is elected, allowing these independent agencies to continue to regulate and adjudicate important laws as written by Congress, which allows for greater efficiency. But of course, efficiently enforcing laws against exploiting and abusing people is really inconvenient for, I don't know, someone who makes electric vehicles that sometimes spontaneously combust, for example. The main problem with all of this is that while the unitary executive theory proponents claim that the Constitution is very clear that the president controls the entire government, the Constitution doesn't actually say anything about agencies and who has power to remove agency heads. So every theory is just going off of extrapolations based on other external evidence. And so you have to also take practical considerations into account. Yes, the Constitution says that the president must take care that the laws be faithfully executed, but it also says Congress can make any laws necessary and proper to carrying out their constitutional powers. So would not the creation of an independent agency that isn't subject to the whim of politics be necessary and proper for the Congress to carry out their constitutional power over interstate commerce, for example? It's so much more complicated than Trump and unitary executive power proponents make it out to be. But the reality is this. There have been independent agencies for over 150 years. For the last 90 years, it has been established Supreme Court precedent that the president cannot remove heads of those independent agencies without cause. And for that same amount of time, presidents have generally respected that reality. That's all three branches of government agreeing on something. There's also the understood first principles of the Constitution, such as liberty and federalism and a separation of powers, that all stand in favor of Congress having the power to create these types of agencies. As Professor David David Dreesen wrote in a 2020 Hastings Law Journal article titled The Unitary Executive Theory in Comparative Context, when comparing democratic declines in Hungary, Poland, and Turkey, quote, centralization of head of state control over the executive branch of government provides a pathway to autocracy. Indeed, unilateral presidential control of the executive branch constitutes a defining characteristic of autocracy. So given the principles so important in the creation of this country and the Constitution, that of separation of powers, democracy, federalism, the ability of Congress to shield certain agencies that solely function in quasi-legislative and judicial roles from the political whims of the executive branch is very much in line with the Constitution. Despite strong arguments against the unitary executive theory, this Supreme Court seems primed to go along with this tide and overturn, at least in part, the 90-year-old Humphreys executor decision, paving the way for Trump to remove independent regulators in favor of people loyal to him. This will impact employment discrimination, workplace safety, but also the regulation of major companies, including those owned by Elon Musk, for example, because it means that the people in charge of commissions like the SEC and the rules and regulations they write and enforce will be beholden to big money and unlikely to enforce the laws Congress has written to protect all of us. Everything Trump has done in the last month has been in an effort to enact all of Project 2025. But this latest executive order is especially concerning given how important the independence of these agencies is to their ability to function and to regulate powerful actors that are hell-bent on making as much money as possible while exploiting as many people as possible. They are a line of protection for all of us that Trump and his loyalists are trying to completely do away with. And the Supreme Court might just let them. If you'd like to support my work, the #1 best way to do so is joining me over on Patreon, where you will get ad-free, uncensored access to all of these episodes. Also, I just launched the Why America Co-Learning Lab, a learning community having discussions and making connections, along with a monthly syllabus curated by me. All year, we'll be covering topics under the umbrella theme of Eat the Rich, building solidarity in the new Gilded Age. February's topic is all about how to build a movement even when you're feeling overwhelmed as hell. This is all hosted over on Patreon, which is linked down in the description, patreon.com/Legia Miller. If you're interested, please join us. Thank you to my multi-platinum patrons, Thomas Orff, Sarah Shelby, Art, David, RH, Latranger Lucas, Joshua Cole, Thomas Johnson, and Tay. Your generosity makes this channel what it is, so thank you. And if you liked this episode, you'll also like the one from Monday, where I talk about the dismissal of the Eric Adams case. Thanks so much for watching. Have a good day. Bye-bye.
A couple days ago, a friend of mine, Matt, came over. You might have met him before. He's a good friend of mine. I've known him for a long time, and we had a little play date. And he came over, and we got to talking. We got to yapping a little bit, blabbering about really evil companies. I think it started because we were going through, like, Meta. And as we were going over, like, Meta and all of their shadiness, it naturally led to, like, TikTok and Twitter and Amazon, the whole kit and caboodle. And then we ended up just diving down the rabbit hole of just discussing, like, evil companies in general. So I just fired on the OBS and started recording the conversation. This is really just the stream of consciousness and ranting about bad companies and learning about how some companies we knew were bad were even worse than we thought. And I just decided, hey, maybe you find it interesting. Or maybe you just want to hear about some shitty companies. So here's two stupid assholes talking about some of the evil corporations in the world. So there's some companies I know are evil, but I can't put my finger on why, like BlackRock.
Right.
And Blackstone.
Exactly.
And any, like, Black plus
one of the
Geode is like bad.
They're always, it almost feels like they tried to make the evilest company.
Yeah, like, so what is BlackRock? They're an investment group, right?
Exactly, and that's everybody's. There's also BlackRock Bar and Grill. They're fine.
Evil.
I don't like their food. They're fine.
And then, so BlackRock, they own everything, right?
Like just everything in the world. You should look. I'll get the size of their investment fund.
Yeah, and then Blackstone is, what do they do?
I don't know what Blackstone is.
Okay, that's massage stones.
Yep.
Blackstone's definitely a company. Oh, I typed in Backstone. I see what went wrong. Okay. Yeah, and it's an investment management company.
Type in who owns Blackstone. I bet it's BlackRock.
Oh no, the geodes go deep. Stephen A. Schwarzman.
Blackstone.
Over 1.1 trillion in assets
under management. All right, now let's see. BlackRock. BlackRock has 10.01 trillion in assets under management.
Oh, wow. Now, what about Rupert Murdoch? He's not a company. Well, he is kind of a company.
He's not a company, right?
Well, he has every company. He is the media mogul. So like every news agency is Murdoch back. Well, he looks like Dana Carvey in Master of Disguise when he's trying to get into the Turtle Club.
You're absolutely right. Just older.
Yeah.
Also, one thing I've always thought, Rupert Murdoch is the most evil sounding name possible.
Did you see it in the Super Bowl? They gave him a shout out.
I did.
They said shout out Rupert Murdoch.
Yeah, I forget why.
He probably owns the broadcasting rights.
Oh, that's right.
He owns anything that hits the television screen. Yeah. Murdoch's got his little winky in.
Oh, he founded Fox.
Oh wow.
I'm pretty sure you know the show Succession.
Yeah, I haven't watched it, but I know it.
There we go. I'm pretty sure the main guy in Succession is based on Rupert Murdoch.
That makes sense.
I think if you're in media, you're evil.
Yeah.
Like if you own media corporations, you are evil.
I think that's fair. Like I feel like it's also only owned by 3 people. Now, I think the most obvious one that we can definitely
I was going to say, do we want to put our number 1 out there?
Yeah, United Healthcare?
It's UHC.
Yeah. Well, the good news is, checking UHC's website, they claim that they approve and pay 90% of all medical claims.
How is that not just false advertising?
It's like, just
we know it's not true.
It's just legitimately a blatant lie. It's so good.
Greedy and evil.
Like needlessly evil too, like outrageously, comically, cartoonishly evil.
Yes.
I think it's worth mentioning when we say United Healthcare, I'm talking more about like even just general health insurance being the worst company in the world.
I think they are the worst
of the worst. Yeah,
they're all terrible.
There's not a good health insurance provider.
Every other healthcare company probably loves UHC because they take all of the heat. That's also horrible. Like these are all bad.
Yeah, they're all not good. Burger King is actually going to be on the worst companies list. It's like the worst.
I can't put it as 2.
It wouldn't be 2. It'd be I'd put it in the top 20 just because the food is so almost inedibly bad that I think you have to give a special spot on a list of worst companies because they consistently have the worst possible food options.
All the time. And just to be clear, in our opinion.
Yeah, well, if we want to get factual, Long John Silver's probably worse than Burger King.
If we want to be factual. Boeing.
Oh, Boeing!
We didn't get into Boeing. This list is going to be so tough. I almost just want a bucket that we throw all the bad companies in. Yeah. Because I know UHC's up here.
It's in a different league, really. Boeing's a really good one because Boeing, not only are the planes not performing well and they just stranded astronauts in space on the Starliner for the last like fucking 14 months. Well, it's supposed to be an 8-day mission has turned into like 300 days stranded on the ISS.
That's insane.
But like, where do you put them? Because like no one's died as a result of the Boeing like corruption yet, aside from the whistleblowers that they're fucking piling corpses up.
But didn't people die in the plane crashes?
Yeah, but that wasn't Boeing's fault. The MAX crashes, that was entirely Boeing's fault. I just mean like recently.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
But yeah, I mean Boeing does have tons of blood on its hands. I was just talking about like these recent plane crashes aren't them. It's not.
I agree. And we're nothing if not intellectual and separate, our feelings. But I know you've watched the same things back.
Target drop. I see movement.
I really do have a concern that women's place in society is going to change in the next few years.
Elon Musk has been in the news this week after it was revealed that he fathered his 13th child with right-wing influencer Ashley St. Clair. Musk, like many Silicon Valley billionaires, has begun posting incessantly about the need to have children, speaking about declining birth rates and railing against childlessness. It's all part of a movement called pronatalism, which is gaining traction in elite Silicon Valley circles. My guest today, Julia Black, is a reporter at The Information and has covered this movement extensively.
we're going to talk about what pronatalism is, how it's affecting our political landscape, and why all of these billionaires are trying to have dozens of children. Julia, welcome to Power User.
Thanks so much, Taylor. So good to see you.
So I wanted to talk to you because I feel like you're the expert on all of this crazy kind of obsession that Silicon Valley has had lately with having babies and families and I guess the rise of what's called natalism. Can you define what natalism or pronatalism means?
Pronatalism or natalism is the idea that due to declining birth rates, one supports the idea of having more and more children. And in this particular incarnation that we're seeing, and that we've seen many times throughout history actually, there's usually a focus on a particular group of people who should be having these extra children.
When did Silicon Valley people become so obsessed with this idea? Like, what first drew them into this movement, and when did that happen?
It certainly first came to my attention in 2021. And I think that is the first time you started to see any of this stuff trickle out from kind of behind the scenes. There is actually evidence that Elon Musk, who is the first person I discovered having an interest in this, has had this interest for years, like since the 2000s when he was with his first wife, Justine. Once he kind of came out of the shadows, came out as a pronatalist, it really started to catch on, and now we're at the point where it seems like every other day I'm going online and seeing some new tech founder, CEO type coming out as a pronatalist. Just the other day, Palmer Luckey gave an interview where he proudly identified as a pronatalist.
I saw that. Does he have children? I didn't realize.
I don't think he has children, but that's something I should fact check. But there are many cases of people in Silicon Valley who actually don't have children, but still identify with this almost as like a political belief.
Okay, so Elon kind of kicked off the movement, but how did other people get on board? And why is this pronatalist kind of belief system so enticing to Silicon Valley founders and billionaires?
Yeah, so again, I mentioned that this is the kind of thing that we've seen throughout history. You see pronatalism emerge typically in moments of kind of national crisis. And it often goes hand in hand historically with the rise of authoritarianism. So I think it is no coincidence that we're seeing what many would call kind of an American decline. There's a lot of concern around the economy, around immigration, and then there are actual numbers behind this. The birth rates in the US are historically low. Birth rates in Europe and many other countries around the world are historically low and below what is called the replacement rate, which is the number of children each average woman needs to have in order to preserve the population at current levels. So, there is a demographic reality here that birth rates in many countries are low. And so that is spurring certain types of people to say, we need to have more kids. But again, it becomes tied in with these ideas about, oh, we need to have more kids to prevent the decline of Western civilization is a buzzword they often throw in there.
Yeah, and to me it feels very like we need to preserve the white race kind of coded, because these are the same people that are also insisting that America cracks down on immigration, right?
Yeah, exactly. So as I've kind of been alluding to, there are certain types of people who show more of an interest in this. In many cases, they are white people, and they are white people who have expressed simultaneously kind of an interest in preserving the white nationalist identity.
I mean, isn't that just the great replacement theory, kind of?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, people who are into great replacement theory are 100% pronatalists. It's correlation maybe, but also often causation. Yeah, I don't think inherently being a pronatalist makes you a white nationalist, but there's a lot of overlap.
With the rise of pronatalism in Silicon Valley, has any of this led to any sort of more friendly parenting policies, more parental leave, any kind of push for tech companies to adopt measures, I guess, that would help their employees have more children?
That is such a good question, and I think something that a lot of people are watching this current administration for, to see if there will be any actual helpful policy that comes out of this for would-be parents in the US. I mean, my husband and I happened to look at daycare prices the other day as we consider having kids, and it's horrific. I mean, truly to the point where it can change your decision one way or another. Am I able to do this or not? So there's tons of parents or would-be parents who would love some relief. Typically, that is not part of the package for pronatalists. I've spoken to a lot of pronatalists who specifically point at Scandinavian countries, European countries that do have, pro-social policies that are good for families, good for parents. And they say, well, that didn't help there, that didn't increase birth rates there, so that's not worth exploring. I think a lot of American parents or would-be parents would disagree that it is worth exploring. If you really want people to have kids, you gotta help them out and make it possible.
There was that tweet the other day, and I'm trying to remember who posted it, but you probably saw it with some Silicon Valley guy. It was like this idea that you can have kids, you can afford it, your parents had it 10 times harder than you. Think of all the modern luxuries that we have in life and think of what people had in the 1800s. You too should have as many children today as, your ancestors did in the 1800s. I think that's kind of crazy because also in the 1800s, kids died at a higher rate, and I don't think that the material conditions of children were that great in the 1800s, so.
Yeah, you want to get into vaccines, and maybe we should start by keeping kids healthy and safe. Like, what should we go back to child labor laws being what they were? Like, there's a million things from the past that have changed, and rightfully so.
A lot of people that have been espousing this pro-natalist ideology are also believers in effective altruism or long-termism. Can you explain what these things are and how do these ideologies overlap?
Long-termism is fundamentally the idea that when we're considering morals and ethics as human beings, we need to consider many generations down the line. So, we don't just owe it to our neighbors to be good people, we owe it to the people of the year 3000 who are counting on us to be good people. One way this gets tied to pronatalism is this birth rate question, these demographic questions about could society collapse if we have fewer kids and then there's no young people to take care of old people. And similar to the way a lot of people worry about climate change, some people worry that demographic collapse is going to destroy the world. I don't think there's like a ton of evidence to support that theory, but that is definitely one thing. I think another way that this gets tied to effective altruism is people who have spent a lot of their careers working with AI have this fear that AI is going to become all powerful, kind of take over the world, surpass humans. So these people start getting really interested in something called transhumanism, which is the idea that we can start to biologically, genetically alter the human race to kind of keep up with AI or be able to hold our own in a world dominated by AI. So you start getting into all sorts of crazy stuff about like the ways that we can alter the reproductive process to not only have more kids, but to have better kids, which is where we start verging into eugenics territory.
Yeah, so much of, I feel like this pronatalism movement is tied in with eugenics. Can you talk about that?
Eugenics is a funny word. I have spoken with people who are kind of in these movements, in this pronatalism world, who will argue eugenics is unfairly coded as a negative thing. Whereas eugenics, all it really means is improving the gene pool of a species. And so they say, like, what's wrong with that? An example that they love to use is, do you believe that two siblings should be able to have children together? And most people would say no, for a variety of reasons, including that those children will be genetically disadvantaged. So they say, okay, so you're a eugenicist. So that's the kind of like level of argument we're dealing with. But yeah, it's if you believe that eugenics fundamentally is just improving genetics of human beings, there are a variety of technologies currently coming to market, beginning like the early stages of coming to market, that are fundamentally doing eugenics. These are products that are going to allow people to select among embryos to pick the one that they believe is genetically superior. But of course, things like CRISPR, which is actual gene editing, are right around the corner. So to me, what's really fascinating about this moment is we have this convergence of like political ideologies with extreme new cutting edge technologies. So like, this is all happening so fast, and wacky ideas are, for the first time in history, like coming at a time when they might actually be possible to achieve with the technologies that are coming downstream.
I think it's also interesting that most of Elon's children have been had through IVF. And obviously, if you do IVF, you're not doing eugenics, right? For a lot of people, it's just how they're able to get pregnant. A lot of people also do the PGS testing, right, to make sure that your embryo is viable. It's not a far jump, as you said, to see how a lot of these gene editing therapies or things could be implemented. To sort of play devil's advocate, why do you think the pro-natalist movement is dangerous? Like, isn't it great to to encourage people to have more children and families in America?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I try to keep a fairly open mind. Over the summer, I wrote a story about a company called Orchid that is doing this pre-implantation genetic testing. And I spoke with parents who have something called the BRCA gene mutation, which will make their kids horrifically more likely to die of prostate cancer, ovarian cancer, breast cancer. I completely understand why a parent would look at their, personal family history and say, I would do everything I can to protect my child from this. The trouble is with so many of these things is, it's a slippery slope. So is picking one embryo over the other a problem when one of those is more likely to die of a really horrific disease? Probably not. But what happens when you start picking the one with the preferable eye color? What happens when companies, which they have started doing, start promising to detect IQ in an embryo? Should you be able to pick for that? I think that the questions get progressively slipperier. And then certainly the direction things are going in our society, I don't know if you've seen Gattaca, the film, but for anyone who hasn't seen it, the plot is basically, a futuristic society in which everyone can do this kind of gene editing and make designer babies. And so there's this poor, unlucky schmuck who gets born with a heart condition because his parents were too selfish to make sure that he was born completely healthy and perfect. And so he is ostracized from this society. Like, is that a society we want to live in, where people are actually actively disenfranchised based on how they're born? Especially as we watch this moment unfold in American governance, where, it seems that Elon and his Doge team are on a mission to turn everything into this completely data-based, stratified society where certain people are advantaged based on their data, etc. I think it's a really slippery slope.
Yeah, especially with the rise of for-profit insurance and the way that our insurance industry currently works 100%. And evaluates risk. And already the amount of data that they have on us is terrifying. And I was thinking of RFK's confirmation hearing just recently when Bernie Sanders asks RFK Jr. if he thinks healthcare is a human right. He doesn't. Surprise, surprise. Yeah. The Make America Healthy movement does not believe in universal healthcare. And he gave the reason of what if somebody smoked for 30 years? Basically, they don't deserve healthcare. And I thought that was wild. It's this implication that you are to blame for your own health problems. And look, of course, okay, maybe smoking is more of a choice, but certain other people are exposed to environmental toxins, or they have a job where they're exposed to COVID 9 million times because they're not allowed to wear PPE, or any other number of things. You're born, like you said, with a heart condition. It's so easy to see how people are already comfortable, even today, weeding out undesirables, right? Even since the beginning of COVID, it went from this 2020 idea of protect the vulnerable, make sure everyone is healthy, to now people are well, just let the people that are sick die already. Why can't they die quicker?
Totally, which is the other side of eugenics, there's, I'm trying to remember how they put it, but it's basically positive eugenics, I think, where you're selecting for the best of the best. But then there's negative eugenics, which is what the Nazis did, where you're trying to eliminate certain parts of the gene pool that you have deemed the worst. So, yeah, I think the risks inherent in all of this are pretty obvious and terrifying.
Are any of these Silicon Valley executives investing in things like artificial wombs or other sort of reproductive technologies that could free women? I feel like when they talk about, pushing pronatalism, whatever, so much of it is also about the subjugation of women and sort of relegating women to their role as mothers, keeping them at home with all of their babies. But is there any chance that they could be developing technologies that would actually make things more equal?
There's a number of technologies currently under development. Artificial wombs is one of those. It's still one of the more far out, unrealistic ones presently, but there are companies working on it, and there are investors whose names we would all recognize. And certainly some of these, I think you could make the argument, could be good for women. There's one company I actually am really interested in called Gameto that is developing solutions to make IVF a more painless process. It's basically shortening that time. If you're freezing eggs or doing IVF, you need to shoot yourself up with hormones, and it's a pretty uncomfortable process. And so they've developed technology to develop those ovarian cells outside of that process so that women are, don't have to shoot themselves up with these drugs for quite as many days. I think it's down from like 7 to 10 days down to like 3 or something. There's a lot of these technologies that I think a lot of women would love to see. Again, unfortunately, I think what we're seeing is this convergence of the technologies coming from one side and the political ideologies coming from another side, and they're going to hit at the exact same time. And so, does JD Vance care much about making women's lives more productive or comfortable? I'm not convinced.
Well, yeah, talk more about that, because why is the pro-natalist movement so tied in with the far right?
Yeah, I think it goes back to what we were talking about before. There's a lot of reasons for white Christian nationalists to feel particularly persecuted in this moment and to see this as their chance to fight back by having more kids, by becoming a more, once again, even more dominant in our culture. One of my biggest worries is that in a few years, women are going to see our status in society backslide quite a bit. I think it's inevitable that some of this language that we're now seeing from the campaign trail to now inside the White House, you see it on Elon Musk's Twitter. He's for years now actually tweeted stuff like, a woman's most important job is as a mother. I do think it's a matter of time before that trickles down into our reality. I think it's a matter of time before women in the workplace start to feel those pressures. So yes, I know that this is going back. You said to be a devil's advocate, couldn't this be good for women? I doubt it. Exactly.
I want to talk about one sort of famous pro-natalist family. I feel like they're the main ones that get profiled all the time, and I think you've profiled them, which is the Collins family. This is a couple who, I think they live in Pennsylvania. They have a bunch of kids. They've sort of become the face of the pro-natalist movement. Why do you think there's such a fascination with this one family in particular?
That's a great question that I keep asking every time another publication releases their profile. I did it first. This was years ago. It seems like the same story comes out every 6 months or so. To any journalist watching this, we're done. They've said their piece. I don't think we need to hear from them again. So I think the lead to my story was Malcolm surrounded by his kids who are screaming and fighting each other and shouting at me, almost like foaming at the mouth, talking to me about how if his kids, he wants to have at least 8 kids, and if they have at least 8 kids, and if they have at least 8 kids, they have at least 8 kids. Within X number of generations, his bloodline will rule the universe. This is really straight out of sci-fi stuff. So, I think with any of these ideas, you want to find a face for them, and they are very readable. Their story is very enticing. They are larger-than-life characters. They have everything planned out down to their outfits. They did a total makeover of the two of them a number of years ago where they decided which glasses they were going to each wear and, to be the most media-friendly and most eye-catching. So they know exactly what they're doing, and to a certain extent, the media has walked into this trap over and over. Like I said, I think it was worth doing once. I don't think that we need the same story every 6 months.
I feel like it's interesting because they've just become kind of like the unofficial spokespeople of this movement, and they're quite unsettling, like you said. It's a weird, if I was to choose the spokespeople for this movement, I guess I would choose someone a little bit more trad and less Reddit seeming. They have Reddit forum energy. I don't know how to describe it.
Yeah, well, it depends who's choosing the spokesperson, and in this case, I guess it's the media, and so, it wasn't on my agenda to set out and find the best representatives to profile. It was I picked the most extreme, so they are the most extreme.
Yeah, I think while the Collinses have been sort of attracting tons of media attention, we've also seen the rise of things like the trad wife movement and these other massive influencers that espouse a lot of sort of similar pro-natalist ideas, but without specifically, I guess, mentioning the ideology or talking about it. How tied in are people like that with this broader movement, or is that sort of an adjacent, similar movement?
I think it's adjacent and similar. It's kind of like I was talking about, the convergence of the technology with this political moment, with this economic moment. Like, the world is so crazy right now. So many different factors are moving at once, but they all seem to be moving in a particular direction. And that is towards what kind of boils down to a return to an old America, for better or for much worse.
Okay, so all these Silicon Valley billionaires want to have lots of babies. They're encouraging people to have lots of babies. You know, they're fathering tons of kids through IVF with God knows how many women. Why should people pay attention to this? Why does this even matter?
For the same reason that we should care, frankly, about anything Elon Musk does at this point, because he's currently the most powerful person in the world. He is currently not only playing the massive role in our economy and our technological development that he has for years, but he is calling the shots for our government. This is where I talk to my friends and they kind of raise their eyebrows at me and say, really, is that going to happen? But yeah, I really do think that we're going to start to see the trickle-down effects of this kind of stuff that's happening amongst the Silicon Valley elite to women in the United States and possibly around the world. But I really do have a concern that women's place in society is going to change in the next few years.
How do you see those trickle-down effects manifesting?
I think a lot of it will be sort of subtle cultural changes. He has already transformed the conversation by buying Twitter. A lot of people rolled their eyes at that when it first happened and said, like, why would he possibly want to own this company? And to me, it was fairly obvious that he wanted to change the conversation, and he's done that. There have been talks about him possibly buying TikTok lately. It doesn't look like it's going to happen, but why would he be interested in that? Because he can change the conversation.
Well, he's controlling the information environment, right?
Exactly. So in very powerful ways, he is reshaping American culture as we speak. And again, now he's turned his sights to government. There have been early hints of policy changes that might come down the line, certain benefits that might be extended to families who have more kids. I think that protections for women in the workplace are going to be reduced. I mean, the attacks on DEI, those are going to hurt women. I wrote a story in the fall for The Information about women in tech who are sounding the alarm about their place in the tech workplace. They are already, even before the presidential election, even before Elon Musk rose to so much power, I think a lot of women in tech were already feeling the downstream effects of this. I remember speaking with women years ago when I first reported the story of Siobhan Zillis having Elon's twin secretly. I spoke with a lot of women who knew her in the past in the tech industry and who felt just devastated by this news, who felt like, what does this say about us? What does this tell you about how men in our workplaces perceive us? That we're just, vessels for their children? We're not their colleagues? We're not their respected staff? So yeah, I think it's going to be like 1,000 cuts for women in our economy, in our society. I think for young women, they're really feeling it. I know, Taylor, you've reported on this a lot, on the rise of the bro podcaster, on the rise of misogyny in college environments, on the way that men feel comfortable speaking to women in a way that they didn't for years there, and will feel comfortable pressuring women into marriages that they don't want to be in, and having kids that they didn't plan to have. There's going to be an attack on reproductive rights. So it's really a huge question. How is this actually going to trickle down to women in a million ways?
We're already seeing, so much of it I think is just tied to the restriction of reproductive rights, right? If your goal is, and you do believe sort of the most important thing is for women to have as many children as possible, you're going to make it harder for them to have birth control, for them to have planned pregnancies, right? Like, you're going to make it harder for them. And it's such a weird thing, because I think at the same time that all of this is happening, there's so many women. I mean, I feel like you and I probably know a lot of women around the same age where it's like they actually desperately want to have kids, but they can't afford it. It's so hard. The economy is already sort of stacked against them. And we know that if a woman has a kid and she's already in a precarious financial situation, she's going to be even more reliant usually on the man or the father of the child, and that gives her even less autonomy over her own life and career, and etc.
Absolutely. It's the one place that I actually do see a lot of bipartisan support. I guess I've been spending a lot of time with right of center think tanks recently who are very pronatalist, and this for them is one issue where they often find common ground with more left-wing thinkers. Basically, there's this whole thing called the abundance agenda, which is trying to tie kind of right side ideologies about promoting economic dynamism with more left-wing stuff about providing just more resources for individuals in the US. So that might be a stretch, but
yeah, I feel like it's a stretch because I will say one of the things that both parties seem aligned on is cutting our social safety net, right? We saw record cuts to the social safety net under Biden, and Trump has rolled it back even further. It seems like neither political party wants to give people any sort of widespread support. It's also interesting, though. I mean, I interviewed Candace Owens recently about the launch of her women's media company. This is a woman who sat on the phone for 20 minutes saying that she didn't believe in paid maternity leave, and yet is hugely, I would say, pronatalist in the sense that she believes women's greatest achievement in life is having kids. Women need to have as many kids as possible. It's the only thing that she believes truly fulfills a woman, et cetera, et cetera. So I don't know. It's interesting how so many of these sort of reactionaries, it seems like they want to trap women in this position, and women are increasingly not given the choice, as to whether or not they want to stay home with the children or are forced to.
I have fun making predictions about what will happen in tech, what will happen in this country in politics. And unfortunately, my current prediction is let's check back in 3 years and see how many women are in the workforce compared to today. I think that number will go down.
When people talk about settling down, having as many kids as possible too, I feel like there's a bunch of right-wingers and tech people that are also very focused on dating apps and optimizing matchmaking and dating. There was that super right-wing guy, Justin something or other, right-wing influencer, who I think got fired from his teaching job actually for saying super bigoted stuff, but he believed in sort of matching people based on their genetic profile or certain traits. Is anyone in Silicon Valley focused on the dating question and sort of helping people partner up so that they can have all of these children?
Absolutely. As you said, this has been kind of in the water for a while. I've seen hints of this where people post on X about dating, and even when I first met Simone and Malcolm Collins, they sent me a dating matchmaking form because they identified me as an eligible bachelorette who might be able to reproduce with a compatible partner and have 13 children. I did not fill it out in the end. There is actually someone who has gone so far as to implement this in his company. You will be shocked to learn he is a Thiel Fellow, meaning funded by Peter Thiel originally. And he has a company called Nucleus Genomics, which recently introduced a dating service called Nucleus Dating, I believe. I think it's somewhat tongue-in-cheek, but also fully exists. And this is basically a straight-out-of-Gattaca dating matchmaking service that compares your genetic compatibility with a partner so that you don't have to get so far down the line and then realize right before you have kids, right before you're supposed to start IVF, which, of course, everyone in Silicon Valley now does for these reasons. And you don't have to get that far without realizing that, oh, no, you both have a certain genetic mutation that runs in your family, or, your kid won't be as tall as you want or have as high an IQ as you want. So we are quite literally entering sci-fi territory faster than I ever predicted we would.
Well, Julia, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much. This was fun.
That's all for this week's episode. You can watch full episodes of Power User on my YouTube channel at Taylor Lorenz. In the meantime, don't forget to subscribe to my tech and online culture newsletter, UserMag. That's usermag.co, usermag.co. If you like this podcast, please give us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen. Every single review counts. Thanks, and we'll see you next week.
Enemy targets confirmed.
This man is the most detestable husband that I've ever seen on the show. And that is saying a lot, because there have been some detestable men on Catfish before. But a man who is so open about leaving his wife and then going back to her if things don't work out, I have never seen. Hi, my name is Shneev from Bishneev. And if that didn't make you subscribe, nothing will, so don't. But if you want to, please stick around. On the new episode of Catfish, we have a crazy old man. Don't know why I did the accent. He's a bit crazy because For whatever reason, he thinks that now he's in his prime, in his 80s or 90s or 180s or wherever he's from, and decides, like many people, to have a midlife crisis. But because everyone now has technology, the midlife crisis is not a Porsche, and then you start honking it at ladies who do not want to be honked at. Nowadays, you do that in a more nuanced way, by honking your dick through Tinder. Honestly, just can't wait for the grandpas of this era to be like, honk to us, put on that thing. I just love to hear a grandpa say that shit, you know? I would love to see grandma's chompers come out right at that moment. Anyway, I just wanted to share with you this video. I thought it was like particularly detestable, so I'd like to go through it, tell you what I think, and I hope you enjoy the video. By the way, consider following me on my Instagram, 16Leo or Suvi, and that way you can give me new ideas. And also, catch my new reels, posting reels, because I'm real. It's like 1 minute segments of this, so if you can't stand me for that long, I would understand.
Rob met a woman named Sarah on Facebook dating. The two hit it off and began a relationship through texting and phone calls.
Why did Mark Zuckerberg do this? Was Facebook not already enough? Like, was it not enough to go on someone's profile, see they have 6 million friends, and also their relationship status is, the fuck? Is that not already too much information? Like, stalkers are like another easy day for me. Do we need Facebook dating? Some people on to watch the show have said in the DMs they found love on Facebook dating. And I keep saying that's not a thing. But to them, I say congratulations. But to everyone else, fooled you. There's so many catfishes. I don't think Mark Zuckerberg cares. I'm sorry. The Zuck was on Facebook himself, pretending to be a dater. I don't get it.
He fell for Sarah so hard, he planned to leave the mother of his child so he could begin his relationship.
I want to plan to fall for someone so hard that I leave the brother of my sister. You did the math on that.
Once he met Sarah in person.
Hi, my name's Rob. I've been living in my house for probably 22 years now.
And what a nice piece of shit it is, Rob. That's fantastic. I hope that the dungeon has room for the princess at some point. That's very nice there. I like the window setup. One is right above the other. So if you need some air for your air, you can get that efficient house there, Robert.
So I'm an avid tractor puller. I love working on tractors. That's my hobby. I'm a maintenance mechanic, worked in Buffalo.
This is the standard picture for every older guy. It's like, I'm gonna stand here, wear way too many layers, and look like unimpressed. And it's like, that's fine, because that's a dad look. Awesome, hilarious. I also like this dad look here. That's a good one. Sometimes there's this one after you've eaten. But if you're going to put that on Tinder, expect to understand that everyone else is like 20, 25. They got guns. They're all jacked. Can I say that? Like these. They're doing well. Okay, Robert, I'm saying that like you're the creme de la crap at this point.
I met this girl on Facebook. Her name is Sarah.
Okay, so this is something that we all need to understand. People like gloss over the fact in catfish. They're like, I met this girl. Did she text you, hey, my name is Sarah, nice to meet you, handsome? Because if she did, that's a catfish. I'm not saying you're not handsome, but you look like your house.
Beautiful girl. She's got long red hair. She says she's 36 years old.
I like how that sounded like he didn't believe her. She says she's 36, but really I think she's way older. She's like 50, but she says she's 36. I guess that makes us both liars.
A lot of tattoos, and I know she loves money. The first couple of pictures.
Within 5 minutes, we have a random girl who just saw this man on Facebook. He thought of all the people that you can meet. She looked at Robert and said, that's the handsomest guy I've ever seen in my life. And he also knows the pivotal thing about her. She likes money. So she's Mr. Krabs, basically. And she might have some, I don't know. In this picture, she doesn't look 36. She looks like she's under 18 even. So how old is Rob, by the way? Is he 36 or is he older? Because I would venture he's 60 something.
She kept saying she loved me. And I said that I would like to meet you. I would like to see you. I would like that relationship. I'd like to live with the girl.
Okay, so keep in mind, this is a man with a family already. He currently has wife and child. And I don't know if it's a wife, but he has baby mama and child who's sort of like growing up, but he's willing to leave those two. And it gets worse, by the way. At the end, you're going to hear the most disgusting thing I think ever. But he looked at this girl, he looked at a couple photos, he did one of these, and then he said, I'm going to ditch my current, I'm going to trade those two for you. Do you know how crazy it is to have such lust over a few pictures that you can leave your actual family? Abandonment for like 2 JPEGs? This man lost his actual family over .jpeg. He saw some pictures and he was like, it's over.
I would like to start a life with her. I would like to have kids with her.
Motherfucker, you already have some of those. God damn. This is like a kid in a candy store. Like, can I have this one? You're like, you already bought that one, David, little bitch. Sorry, your mom's not here. I can say that.
Just live with her, you know? Sarah, that I know of, does not have no kids. She loves butterflies. She's got tattoos all over her body.
Those sentences, sir, do not really correlate with each other, so I need your brain to get a CT scan whenever you have time, because he literally said, as far as I know, she wants to have kids. She likes butterflies. That's like going to a restaurant and the waiter's like, would you like steak? And you're like, I would not like to have a good day once in a while. You know what I mean? And then you guys just stare at each other for like 8 hours. What the fuck? Why? Dave, what's his name? Rob.
With butterflies. She loves that. There was times to where we did talk about sex a lot.
Nobody asked, Rob. Nobody, that's assumed. I assume every old person on the show, every person on Catfish has showed their old ass, wet ass, that dry ass pussy or them raisined up ball sacks to many people. I think if someone collected a database of old balls, you'd find half these people on. I don't knock doubt that. You didn't have to say it, okay? God, imagine your kids watching like, hey, what's dad up to? Ugh, the fuck?
She wanted it, I wanted it.
It's only a matter of time, by the way. It really is only a matter of time before some kid watches this and is like, I can get that much from dad? I'll pretend, hey baby, and then that's gonna be a whole thing. $300 therapy sessions right there. Scam dad out of money, gone wrong, gone sensual.
Like right now, she says she's in the UK, and I don't believe that because she won't give me the address or anything.
Yeah, she should have just said 12 UK Road. Yeah. I don't know. She's in the UK at the moment, but she's from America. She has butterfly tattoos and likes money. But yes, okay, so Rob is infatuated with this girl, this redhead. She looks like a Disney princess of sorts, and he is just willing to risk it all. He just wants to move on with his life, his current life. Don't you all wish that we could do that at some point? Like you wake up and be like, I'm done. Let me move on to a new life. Rob is living that.
Social security number, my driver's license,
Yeah. This man saw a couple pictures of a redhead and gave her social security. She said, if you want to be with me, I need you to trust me. Send me your social security number and a photocopy of your ID. I'm going to start doing that. I'm just going to start. I don't even know if I need people's social security, but in case I move to America, they'll be like, what's your social security? And I'll be like, which one? Which one? Pick one. Seriously? Babe, I love you, but I also love social security. The fuck, bro? It really doesn't make it seem any better that you drive tractors. Like, you know what I mean? I could just hear the banjos and I drive tractors for a living. Like, come on. Come on, dude. The fuck are you giving away that for? I don't even live in America, and I know don't give away your social security. Might as well just give her his passport and his butt cheeks.
just a bunch of stuff that I never should have sent, but I sent. Because she had my trust. The first time I started sending...
Now she has your trust fund, asshole. So what happens there?
Money to Sarah. It was her birthday. She wanted something for her birthday.
It's my birthday today, babe. Can you send me some money so my day can be spent? Oh, I need to use that line on so many people. Minus the babe, because then most of my friends are going to be like, oh, it's my birthday today, bruh. Can you send me some money so my day can be special? Otherwise, I will cry. Please, I love you. Please send $1,000+.
Well, I don't know how to do this. I was a little leery on it, and she just, well, send me 100. I said,
okay, I've said this before. I'll say it again so it gets stuck in everyone's head. If anybody's using a gift card, they're a scammer. And if they're not a scammer, they're even worse, actually. So I hate everyone collectively who uses gift cards. If you currently have an iTunes gift, if you were gifted one, fine. But if you're gifting people gift cards, fuck you. Fuck you. Give money. You can spend it anywhere. Imagine giving someone Apple gift card and you're like, I like Samsung now. And Samsung's like, well, you cannot spend it here. Give money.
I guess, in the United Kingdom. When she left to go to the United Kingdom, she never told me that I had to support her.
So Sarah, at this point, is going to the UK, presumably to find herself, as many do. And she now is under the assumption that Tractor Man can support her lifestyle with his tractor skills. What do you mean you don't want to support me? You're supposed to be my boyfriend. Calling an old man someone like a boyfriend is already creepy enough, firstly. Secondly, damn, what an assumption to think that a tractor driver is going to support your London lifestyle. And also a correct assumption, because he does.
What is this? I said, I can't do this. I was looking for other avenues of money, a couple of credit cards.
And yet he did do it, by the way. He keeps saying he can't do this. He keeps saying, what a joke, what a scam this is. This is horrible. I didn't know about this, but his bar and ceiling just keeps rising. He's like, man, this girl is so hot when she gets back from UK in the next 5 to 10 decades. I cannot wait to see her when I'm still alive and well. Grandpa, it's over.
So I just kept sending her money, and I think that the money total now is like over $16,000.
Does she look like someone who needs a Steam gift card? Does she look like she has a computer? Really, dude? This dude probably thinks Steam is like, coal and shit like that. These people are crazy. I don't know what to say, man. If you're gonna give your social security number and still talk to someone and then give them gift cards for their birthday and then fund their lifestyle in a different country and they still haven't talked to you on video call and you're willing to leave your family for it, who's really the bad guy here? It just seems like it's you.
She wanted me to pay for her hotel room constantly. It was like $2,000 every couple weeks or something like that.
In London? It's a cheap hotel room, guy. Also not true. And also, what does she do for her job? She's been there for 8 months and she needs hotel rooms every 2 weeks? Is she a proud American?
She said she had to have $2,800 for her lawyer because she was supposed to get her inheritance.
Oh, shit, man. Okay, so this girl's father had passed away in between her trip to the UK for 8 months, and now she can't come back home because she has to pay for a hotel room. But the lawyer cost $2,800. Oh, man. Let me read this to you guys. I, Williams D. Bromell, a resident of whatever that shit is, hereby declare this is my last will. Oh, damn. I have only one daughter with the name Sarah Sen Bromell. All references and property should be given to my only child and her future husband. Nice. I'm glad he put that shit in there. If my daughter is unable or unwilling to serve, I appoint her future husband all power. That's amazing. I love wills that are like, let's appoint it to a future husband, but not the first one, the one after the divorce. He's just like predicting. And when Sarah gets fat and ugly, hopefully the third guy can marry the second guy because they figure out they're gay for each other. Amen. And then he sells his will as a book and people buy it.
He had already sent tens of thousands of dollars to Sarah. The inheritance was supposed to be for him to pay all his bills off, and Sarah would finally...
I like how they put the certified thing over the will so you can't read the will. That's how you stamp things. Everyone's just like, sign wherever you can, bro. I'm just gonna keep stamping this. It's certified.
He was willing to do whatever it took.
I took it out of my 401k and I gave it to her through gift cards, all of it.
Yes, again, sounds logical, sound, and really good. I went to my retirement fund to take out money to put into gift cards to transfer so that she can pay her lawyer in gift cards so she could then get her lawyer to write up her will for her dead father. It's a good day in the Robb household.
After so many days, it was $2,800 to get it started. The lawyer...
His name is Alex the Lawyer. He's on Facebook and his name is Alex the Lawyer, and his pictures of him holding a fucking phone in his hand. Oh my God. It's like David the douchebag, and he's just out there kicking homeless people in the nutsack, and he's like doing this. Come on, on Facebook, this money needs to be paid, Rob. Okay, I will help. The first payment is what you need to send, and you need to finish it to the end. You need to finish the payment until it's finished, Rob.
The lawyer talked to me, told me this is what you get started and you got to finish it right to the end. And he kept saying, keep it quiet. Don't let anybody hear anything.
I love when lawyers say the words, keep it quiet, don't tell anyone anything. That's how you know you got a good lawyer, when the lawyer is like, I won't tell if you don't. That's what I really need in a lawyer. That's a good lawyer, Alex the lawyer.
At the right time, the right place. Anytime I texted, she was right there. I like that quality in her. And
get AI. You know, honestly, at this point, are the scammers even actual people anymore, or is it just running through ChatGPT and they're like, holy shit, we just increased our scam productivity tenfold? Because I really think AI is helping to scam people now.
My ex-wife, that's all she was concerned about was money. All right, she wanted money left and right. Any amount of money didn't make her happy.
I can't with these people. Like, sometimes I'm like, oh, that's really tough, and I don't know the ins and outs of marriage. I get it. I don't know everything, and I'm fully aware and appreciative of that. At the same time, and I just want to say, this really does matter. Don't marry someone if you know they're like this. This dude is like, all she ever wanted was money. So it's like, you knew that, but now you got annoyed at that. If that's all they do, you have the option not to marry them, dude.
I see the simulation with Sarah.
That's not even how you use that word. Firstly, you're talking about similarities. I don't know if you just made up the word simulation or you said assimilation. Either way, it's wrong. Secondly, dude, if you see the similarities, why are you repeating the same mistake? Oh my God. Imagine having a food that makes you allergic and bloat up and you're like, I see the similarities between this food and the last food, and then you just keep doing it again. You'd be insane. This is insanity, Rob. Also, it's Nigerian, man.
Money. It's just no amount of money is going to make her happy. I says, I kept telling Sarah, I said,
babe, that's not how he talks. I thought I'd give him a look. Babe, I've been through the same thing you're doing to me with my ex-wife. Please stop asking me for money all the time.
I lived this life 10 years ago, and I got divorced because of it, because I couldn't do it no more. I'm going to make the same decision with you. I got a 14.
You're not even married to her. You're just gonna divorce her. You're like, babe, this keeps happening with all my wives. Do you wanna be my wife so I could say you're just another one of my wives? Then he goes on to talk about his kid. It's actually just distressful, in my opinion, that this dude has a child and he barely even talks about him.
I'll give her the world. Anything I can possibly give her, I'll give her.
Syphilis, herpes.
She's a little on the bigger side. She's probably 220 pounds, 5'4", 5'5", maybe. I mean, a beautiful girl, but she's just big.
You did for whatever reason decide to throw out the weight and height. Like, I needed a police description of the lady. Don't really understand. And yeah, okay, I mean, if her figure is bigger, then why are you with her if you don't want to be? You know what I mean? If that's such a problem for you, why are you there? Also, it's not like she can't lose weight, firstly. Secondly, maybe she doesn't want to, and maybe you should just appreciate the fact that you literally said she does anything for you. Just saying. Thirdly, kinda gross. Right. You're on the show literally talking about how you've been living with someone 14 years, have a son that's 14 years old, and you're still chasing this girl and giving her all the money. Imagine that money you could use to help your family fucking do anything other than what you're doing, dude. That's the tractor college, man. This guy went to tractor college. That's the problem with tractor college. They didn't teach you about this stuff.
She's on the bigger side. My thing was, Sarah's a very beautiful girl. She probably weighs 130 pounds soaking wet.
What the hell is up with American men and guessing women's weight? Why? What is this, a circus? I've never in my life ever looked at a girl and be like, you're 180 pounds or just sexy? Like, what? I've never guessed a girl's height, except every now and again being like, you're pretty tall, or I'm short. I don't know. That's it. I never understood that. I don't get it. I don't get why it's such a big thing. This dude is talking about her waist? Come on. I don't want to go there. But look at his head. You'll never forget it. It looks like an egg.
Maybe 140. I would love to be with a beautiful girl again, all right? My girl's beautiful. She's just 220 some pounds.
That's like saying you're beautiful, you just don't have hair and you're ugly. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's kind of a backhanded compliment. Also, if you want to be with a beautiful girl again, maybe you should turn into a beautiful guy or something. Dude, I don't know what to tell you. It's kind of like you drive tractors, you think that's attractive. Maybe in some states, I don't know.
I've told her I would, but I just never married her. It turns me off. That's all.
We got a real keeper here, ladies and gentlemen. I've never married her. I've told her I would, but I just didn't because she's fat and it turns me off. But I did have a kid with her. Shows her. She'll do anything for me. She loves me, but I love redheads who weigh 10 pounds.
The only reason I knew her and started dating her when I got out of my marriage, when I was divorced, we met right away and we hit it off.
Love that, by the way. Love that for you, dude. Love the idea of as soon as you got divorced, straight into another relationship. That almost always works out. 90% of people say, what? When they hear that story. So that's really good for you, Rob.